glorified and remembered everywhere in the world. That will bring about the desired peace and prosperity, so eagerly awaited by the people of the world. The word cha includes all the remaining processes or methods of bhakti yoga, as mentioned above. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Yana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadam Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaganalitam Shri Sahaganalitam Shri Raghunadantam Charivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahaganalita Shri Vishakamvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Stute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, thank you all for coming today. As I said before, we will be speaking from Canto 2, Chapter 2, Text 36. Titled Lord in the Heart. Since it's the new year, 2020, new decade, new everything, I thought it would be best to bring importance to the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam. The importance of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in our daily lives, why we should do it, and why we should give such importance to it. Here we have the perfect example, King Parikshit, with our lives now compared to his life. He lived almost a perfect life. He was the grandson of Yudhishthira Maharaj, one of the best devotees of Krishna. He lived a full life. He was young, he was powerful. He had everything he wanted. He was the peak of his youth. But as we know, he was cursed by the Brahmana's son to live for him to die in 7 days. And he took that as a wake-up call, and he did what all of us should do. And then he left everything and went to hear Srimad Bhagavatam from a bona fide spiritual master, Sukadeva Goswami. Here, he only had a few days to survive, and he utilized those 7 days perfectly by listening to a pure soul, Sukadeva Goswami, as I said before. Here, this translation, Sukadeva Goswami is giving a message that really encapsulates all the very spirit of Srimad Bhagavatam. He uses the word, it is therefore essential. It is essential that every human being hear and glorify and remember the Supreme Lord always and everywhere. All the Vedas, if you take it in a general sense, come down to two principles. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. And that's what you see here, always and everywhere. There's no in-between between always and everywhere. He's saying always and everywhere, remember and glorify the Supreme Lord in his activities. Prabhupada says in the purport, material civilization provides all these material machines, all these endless distractions. At every corner of the world, you can get distracted very easily, anywhere you look. He says, in the material world, people are so habituated, so conditioned and caught up in things that give them some sort of temporary pleasure and relief of the mind and senses. And they become addicted to these activities. As you see when sports teams play, the craziness, even here in the Ohio State, the colleges, you can see the traffic, the partying, just people get drunk left and right for the games. There's no reason for that. And all these people are chasing after temporary happiness. They're not chasing after eternal happiness. Temporary happiness is what they're running after. Here, I was listening to a class in Narahari Maharaj told the story of Prabhupada, who said in England there was a group of miners in the mine. They were mining, and then a Christian preacher came and was trying to convert these miners to Christianity. And he said, "Oh, if you don't follow Christ, you'll go to hell." And then these miners asked, like, "What is hell like?" He's like, "Oh, it's cold, it's dark, there's nothing there." And he goes, "Oh, we live that every day. We're miners." So in that sense, they did not feel tempted to do it. But then Narahari Maharaj was saying the preacher used his creative abilities. And he said, "Oh, they don't have newspapers in hell." And then they're like, "Oh, very bad, very bad, very bad." So we can see this material addictions to temporary happiness is crippling the minds of many, many, many people. And they have the ability, but they won't understand what they're going through because they don't have a guru or someone to lead them in the right direction. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, 5-9, Vishayagni vartante nivaharasya dehina rasavarjam rasopyasya param drishva nivartate. It is very difficult to give up these material habits, such as gossip, hearing mundane subjects, things like that. When people are addicted to anything, not only if not be gossip, anything, we know that once you become habituated to something, it is very hard to give that specific thing up, whether it be an object, drugs, anything. It is very hard to give that up. So here, Krishna is saying here, it is very difficult to give up mundane activities once you become addicted. However, if we experience the higher taste, if we listen to Bhagavatam, if we take part in Kirtan, it is wonderful. We get addicted to the right thing, the love of Krishna. And here Srila Prabhupada emphasizes that the first principle of the 9 processes of bhakti is to hear, as he says in the purport. But all of the 9 different methods, the first one, namely hearing, is the most important function in the process of bhakti yoga. He says the most important. Because it becomes through hearing, all the other 9 processes of bhakti become activated. However, people may say, because in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when asked, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, the most important process of bhakti is kirtan. And people may say, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said it's kirtan, Prabhupada saying it's hearing. Why? Because kirtan and hearing are not indifferent. Because when you chant, you hear. And that's how you get absorbed. Absorption is the most important part when it comes to hearing. If you're not absorbed, then you're not focused. And if you're not focused, you're not drinking in the nectar that whoever's speaking is telling. By hearing, we become more enthusiastic to chant, to do service, to do any type of devotional activity. And we have many examples in our parampara, many devotees who have perfected their lives by specifically focusing on one process of bhakti. For example, Haridas Thakur. All he did was chant. And then he perfected his life. Parikshit Maharaj, he listened 7 days, just nothing but hearing. Nothing but listening to Srimad Bhagavatam, and he perfected his life. We have so many examples of why even focusing on one will lead to all the other 9 being fulfilled. Because Krishna sees our determination, he sees our want to get closer to him. Prabhupada explains that when one is infused with Krishna's grace, by listening, we gain more enthusiasm to do devotional service, which is such a vital part in the process of surrender. Because without enthusiasm, we don't want to do anything. We can always be lazy, like, oh, Prabhu, can you do the service? Okay, I'll do it because you asked me. There's no hunger, there's no want, there's no striving for wanting to do service. Prabhupada explains, you must be enthusiastic to hear and chant, because being enthusiastic is an expression of our free will as devotees. If we're enthusiastic to do a service, if we're enthusiastic to do that next round, enthusiastic to clean the pots, it's showing our free will that we're willing to use our time in Krishna's service. Krishna says, Yeyatama prapadyante. Krishna reciprocates with us on the level of our surrender. As much as we surrender to him, he reciprocates that much. So when we give such enthusiasm to do Krishna's service, he reciprocates with us very nicely. Someone asked Prabhupada, what if I'm not enthusiastic? What if I don't feel enthusiastic? Then what do I do? And Prabhupada gave a very simple answer. If you don't feel enthusiastic, act enthusiastic. Because that was that tapasya, that's tapasya. Acting when you don't feel like it. But then tapasya doesn't mean like, only do what you don't feel like doing all the time, things like this. No, it's do what's favorable for Krishna consciousness, for you to get better Krishna consciousness. If that be wake up early, that's tapasya. That means if it's like chant your rounds before Mangalarti, all these per se goals you have, that can be tapasya. So even if you don't feel enthusiastic, you can act enthusiastic. So that gives you that fire to do more. What matters is samsiddhi haritoshana. You want to please Krishna. So keeping that in mind, feeling enthusiastic is the perfect way to step forward in spiritual life. It will please, with the mindset of, if it will please Krishna, I will feel enthusiastic. If it please Krishna, I will do this. All doing everything for Krishna's service. People act enthusiastic in a normal material world. So what's the reason we can't? Because you see all these music concerts, especially the people on stage. Rana Samaraj gave the example of a drunkard. To be enthusiastic on stage, all these singers, all these people, they take many drugs and all this to act enthusiastic and to feel enthusiastic. And seeing them, the entire crowd gets enthusiastic. Not only music concerts, sports games, all these things. Even in the material world, people act very, very enthusiastic. So what's wrong with us? Devotees acting enthusiastic to do service. Some may say, you're acting. There's no heart. There's no fire behind that. Yes, we're acting, but we're acting in the service of Krishna. Because our main goal is to take, even if we're not feeling it, we want to please Krishna. That's the ultimate goal. And then how much does it matter in spiritual life then? Enthusiasm is very, very, very important. Because when it's built on a foundation of proper intentions, when enthusiasm is built on a foundation of proper intentions, to please Guru and Krishna, then great things can happen. For example, Rama Swami gave the example of the TOVV temple. All these people, Ambarish Prabhu, everyone heading the project, they had that enthusiasm to please Prabhupada, because Prabhupada wanted this temple. And now it's manifesting because of their enthusiasm and hard work. His Holiness Rama Swami said in the class, sometimes when you don't feel enthusiastic, that is when you make the most spiritual progress, the best spiritual progress. Because then we're making the conscious choice to get better in our spiritual life. When we're always enthusiastic, yes, we're progressing in spiritual life. But when we don't feel enthusiastic, as I said before, Krishna sees us utilizing our free will in a way to please him, which gives us more push in spiritual life. And that gives us, because it also makes us fully surrender to the higher purpose. Because then we're like, I don't feel enthusiastic. I will try to feel enthusiastic so I can please Krishna. Then you're fully giving yourself everything back to Krishna so you can become better. Raghunath Das Goswami says, talking about, as it says in the purport, this topic of gossip and mundane discussions, says that talking about these mundane things, it steals from the heart all the propensity to hear about Krishna. When people gossip about mundane subjects, they no longer feel the want, they no longer feel the need to hear or discuss about Krishna. Nothing's like that. Rupa Goswami also says that one of the principles of devotional service is to give up the inclination to find faults with others. Here, in many instances, you hear, this devotee did like this, then I should not speak to him. This devotee did like this devotee did like this. No. Rupa Goswami specifically says, one of the principles of devotional service is to give up the inclination to find faults. We should not have active mind to say, oh, this Prabhu did like this, then I should do like this. This finger pointing, all this stuff is very bad for our own spiritual life, because it takes away our want to hear and do service in the process of bhakti yoga. Raghunath Das Goswami also continues to compare that the mind is victimized by the propensity to gossip. So when we take part in all these gossips and discussions, our mind becomes completely enraptured and covered by this material cloud of mundane topics. Then, for us to remove that cloud, it takes double the work. We have to really work our way up again to remove that cloud. That's why Rupa Goswami again says, if we, first of all, avoid the inclination to take part in any of these things, then we can make the best spiritual progress in life. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, when you criticize devotees, it is like drinking poison. When you criticize any devotees, it is like drinking poison. You're killing your own devotional progress by criticizing another devotee. This is the danger of this gossip and mundane discussions. It kills the propensity for true devotion. And the only one antidote for this so-called poison is hearing. Hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing the Bhagavad Gita from a bona fide spiritual master. Because to glorify Krishna and to glorify the devotees and to glorify the holy name is the highest purpose. And as it says in the translation, one should do this always and everywhere. Radha Swami Maharaj was saying the story of how Lord Chaitanya was returning from an attempt to go to Vrindavan. So he was returning from an attempt to go to Vrindavan, and he was passing through a town called Varahan Nagara. It's still there today. And as he was passing through the town, he heard a Brahmana reciting Srimad Bhagavatam, very loudly. And then he was drawn towards the Brahmana. Very enthusiastic the Brahmana was chanting. Lord Chaitanya started dancing and crying and showing all the signs of ecstatic ecstasy. His tears started pouring from his eyes, and for 8 hours this Brahmana was chanting the Srimad Bhagavatam, pushed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, saying, keep going, keep going, keep going. And at the end, after this 8 hours, he embraced the Brahmana, still tears flowing from his eyes, showing signs of a lot of ecstasy, saying again and again, keep going, keep going. He gave the Brahmana the name Bhagavatacharya, which means Acharya of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This shows that even Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is the incarnation of God, if he is showing this much enthusiasm to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, what should we be like? We are nowhere in comparison to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If he is so much inclined and has this hunger to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, how much should we feel? How much should we strive? How much should we want to hear Srimad Bhagavatam? This is the standard of an example that we have to hold high in life. All these acharyas that we have, they set amazing examples of what we should do, how we should lead our devotional lives. Mahajana Yena Gatana Sabha. The path of perfection is to follow the footsteps of the great souls. We have our entire parampara, Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, all the gurus, everyone, all the pain, the suffering, everything they went through to give us what we have today. We have to respect that and take use and use it to its utmost capability. Prabhupada came here and gave us Srimad Bhagavatam. He went through so much to print those first books. He went through everything. He gave utmost importance to the books. And if we don't read and hear, then what is the use of all Prabhupada's pain? We have to respect what the Acharyas did for us, and then we have to keep going. And as the main point of this is that enthusiasm is a vital part of Krishna conscious life. Even if it not be for hearing specifically, for anything, enthusiasm to devotional service, just jumping onto service without anyone asking, enthusiasm to chant, enthusiasm to chant those extra rounds even. You can give the example of jaundice. Jaundice, when someone has jaundice, sugar cane tastes very, very bitter to them, correct? sugar cane tastes very bitter. But as they eat it and as they get healed over time, sugar cane starts tasting sweeter and sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. In the same way, our heart and our mind is like having jaundice. And the hearing and chanting of Srimad Bhagavatam is like that sugar cane. In the beginning, we may say, oh, this class is so long. When is prasad? When is this? When is that? But as we hear, it eats away at the disease on our heart and mind. And soon we will feel the sweetness of hearing and chanting. But it's that, like I said, our free will to take that step and feel enthusiastic to want to hear, to want to chant, and to understand that hearing and chanting, all these things combined, will chip away at our so-called diseased heart and mind, and we'll soon feel the sweetness of Krishna's glories. So much of the process of surrendering unto Krishna is enthusiasm. How many examples can you say that all these acharyas, they surrendered without enthusiasm? Anyone? Can you say anyone surrendered without enthusiasm? No, you cannot say anyone surrendered without enthusiasm. Haridas Thakur, perfect example. His enthusiasm to chant every day, to chant his quota of rounds, showed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he was very serious in his devotional service. So in our own lives, we're students, we're working people, we have jobs. That all is there. But we have to make that active choice to say, okay, I'm going to set aside this time, I'm going to do devotional service, do my devotional activities. Because we can always say, oh, I have this, we'll put it off later. Oh, I have this, we'll put it off later. That's there. As Prabhupada said, the material world has distractions at every corner. Everywhere you look, there's distractions in the material world. So, as Prabhupada was saying, Sukadeva Goswami was saying in the translation, glorifying and remembering the Supreme Lord, always and everywhere, is the perfect way to escape the clutches of material existence. Because, as Prabhupada was saying, the machines are everywhere now. Soon, artificial intelligence will become a thing. And then everywhere you look, there's a machine, which means there'll be distractions, which makes it harder for people to focus on Krishna consciousness. But if we keep this in mind, that we have to continuously glorify the Lord and think of His pastimes, then we should be okay. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Man mana bhavo madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mam nevasyasi sakyante pratijane priyosime. As Krishna says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage to me. From this, hearing and chanting is the foundation of bhakti. As we said, there are 9 processes of bhakti, but hearing and chanting, as shown by all our acharyas, are the most important. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he flooded the streets with the chanting of the holy name. Our Prabhupada, Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati, they flooded the streets with the glories of Krishna, and those who heard became purified. So hearing and chanting in this day and age, especially now, is of utmost importance. With the modern age becoming more and more distracting, crippling, and all these politics that are happening, if we push all that to the side and we focus on Krishna consciousness, especially hearing and chanting, then we can make very nice progress in our devotional life. Again, if we do it with enthusiasm, it is Krishna's promise that we will come back to Him. He says in the verse, if we do anything devotional service with enthusiasm, He promises that we will come back to Him. And if we always want to be absorbed in Krishna, His name, we must have this enthusiasm to be the humble servant of the servant of the servant. As I keep saying before, the want to do service, the hunger, the want to do any type of devotional service is of utmost importance. Because if we don't show our want and need and strive for doing better in Krishna consciousness, then Krishna cannot reciprocate with us. Because if we don't show Him that we're trying to get to Him, then He can't come closer to us. that way, since it's the new year, I felt that knowing, obviously all of us know that hearing is important, chanting is important, but I just wanted to bring more light onto why it's important. Because we hear every day, every class, oh, you should hear, you should chant from a bona fide spiritual master, always. But rarely do you hear the why. Why is because by hearing and chanting, we purify ourselves, and by speaking, we purify ourselves and those around. Because when we, again, enthusiasm in devotional service is of utmost importance. So with that, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments?
I liked your point about free will as being expressed through enthusiasm and how that's a form of tapasya. I was reflecting on it as you said it, because if you do a tapasya without enthusiasm, it can feel like you're doing it under duress. And it's not really an act of free will in that case. It's like the person who makes you do it gets some, maybe all of that credit. But if you mean it from the heart, then your enthusiasm will carry you over the obstacles that are making you reluctant to do it, or whatever that's favorable for devotional service. Overcoming that and growing in that way, it's the perfection of free will. I liked that point a lot. Also, a note on this Bhagavatacharya, his name was Raghunath Das, different Raghunath Das from the six Goswamis. And Lord Chaitanya also empowered him to write a Bengali version of Srimad Bhagavatam called Bhagavatam. Sri Krishna Tarangani. And it's a Bengali verse, like poetic verse version of Bhagavatam. So that book is still available. So it needs translated into English, but it's there in Bengali. Very nice, thank you.
Thank you.
So I was also, thank you for the nice class. When I was picking the song for this morning, I was looking through many songs, and one song in Pradhana Nartham Das Thakur says, and it's a point that you touched upon, that if someone makes it a fault towards Krishna by chanting Hare Krishna, it's all gone away. But if someone makes an offense to a devotee, then it can never be gone away. It says that if you ever make an offense to a devotee, you're not even qualified to touch the dust of the feet that fall off the feet from that Vaishnava. And that's the song. It's in the song by Narottam Das Thakur. So I looked up fault finding, and then one of the most common what's there in the Bhagavatam is the fault of Daksha, and he's finding fault in Shiva. So I'm trying to find this direct. You're mentioning that fault finding leads to less devotional life or less taste in devotional life, but I want to see that direct connection.
See, what I meant by saying that is, let's say when you're fault finding another devotee, you're criticizing that devotee.
Okay.
And Krishna specifically says in the Srimad Bhagavatam, when you criticize another devotee of mine, then not your own devotional service, the quality of your devotional service decreases. Even if you do the same thing, and you may forget about criticizing, Krishna doesn't forget. So you criticizing that devotee reduces the quality of your devotional service. You may be doing the same service, but you won't be doing it with the same power and potency as before, because you made that offense of criticizing that devotee and offending him.
And that's how you lose taste?
Because when you do devotional service with less potency and less strive, then as you keep doing it, you slowly lose taste. You gradually lose taste for spiritual life.
Yeah, I want to see that direct connection. Thank you.
So in that regard, one time Hare Krishna Maharaj, he told one point, I could never forget that point. He said, when we offend a devotee or criticize a devotee, even before that devotee starts feeling bad, the dust of the devotee will go and tell Krishna already. The dust of that Vaishnava, it goes and it complains to Krishna already that Brajbhakti offended this devotee or criticized the devotee. So when that happens, Krishna, he withdraws the mercy. When he
Yes,
withdraws the
yes.
mercy, we lose the taste
Correct.
for devotion service.
Yeah,
It's reciprocation.
So,
yeah, where's that connection?
yeah, so we may go and apologize to the devotee. The devotee may say, okay, that's okay, Prabhu. But Krishna remembers. And Krishna definitely wants us to learn that lesson. And then we will get into that situation down the line somewhere where we are in his shoe and the other devotee is on our shoe.
Yeah.
So that's why we have to be very careful when we are communicating, when you are in the devotee association, what we talk, what we do. Making sure it's not like we can correct the devotees. We have to correct sometimes. If your younger devotees are coming, you can correct Parikshit. Parikshit is doing something. But what is the intention of correction behind that? And how nicely we have to correct all these things we have to learn. So that point I would never forget. And like, oh my God, even before devotee feels when the dust goes and tells Krishna, I'm like, what?
There's that whole lila of Advaita Acharya and Sachi Mata, right?
Ah, yeah. See, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't say anything until that. Basically, Sachi Mata, she didn't even say anything. She was only thinking. But because Krishna is in the heart, he could see what her thought process was. Even though it's not a bad thing because he's her son.
Yeah.
But still, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to teach us through her what is the effect of offending or thinking wrong about devotees.
Can I bug one more?
Yes, Prabhu.
You going one level deeper on that, you mentioned in the class specifically, and I think intentionally, that it's the inclination for fault finding. So how would you give some help or advice to someone who is like, how do I can overcome the actual act, but how about overcoming that inclination? Do you have anything specific about that to say?
See, in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Bhagavatam, Krishna says, for one to become purified in spiritual life, one must take part in the act of devotional service and devotional activities. One may start his devotional life, because we all started somewhere. One may start as a fault finder. His mood might be a fault finder, like you did this, just critical everywhere. But if he seriously keeps gradually progressing in Krishna consciousness, taking his round seriously, doing service, he slowly gets purified from the inside. And then he comes to a point where, as you said, there's that crossroad. Okay, I can stop, I'm going to stop doing this, but there's that inclination, as you said. But as he keeps gradually doing Krishna consciousness, all inclinations for fault-finding and blasting devotees will perish.
Yes, thank you.
Because we all know, chanting and hearing purifies the heart.
Yeah.
And once the heart is purified, there's no need, there's nowhere to have the inclination to fault-find, inclination to do any other material activities. Because when we become purified, all our only focus is Krishna and his service.
Srvanam. Beautiful, thank you.
So Prabhu, as Mataji and as Hari Prabhu is saying, that Mataji is saying that even by thinking about some other devotee, it might get us a bad result. And Hari Prabhu is saying, by acting bad, it might get us a bad result. And you were explaining that we have to be enthusiastic, and then if we do any offenses, then the enthusiasm will lose. Now, the contamination, the anartha nivritti will happen only when we have the spiritual master. But when we are starting to have enthusiasm and doing all this, then definitely we will have all the thinking process going on. Even if we don't act, even if we don't do anything, but thinking would always be there. So we are acting enthusiastically and we are thinking. That means we are creating offenses. That means our enthusiasm will go down because we are creating offense. And then we won't be even able to reach the anartha nivritti stage, or we will get the spiritual master since Krishna will withdraw his mercy. So how do we...
See, if you're enthusiastically doing service, then the thought of anything bad should not be in your head. Because when you're focused, if you're completely focused on that service, let's say washing the pots, doing kirtan, doing puja, if you're completely focused on that service, your mind is clear. If you're not focused on that service, then things start to, boil in the head. But if you're focused on that service, your mind becomes clear and you're only focused on Krishna and that service. What happens after that, if you're idle-handed, nothing to do, then your mind starts to do. But if you have service and you're focused on it, then there's no reason for your mind to go on. The only reason if it goes is that if you're not focused. So we have to make it our choice to, not choice. We have to make it our goal to be fully focused on the service that we're doing, so that our mind becomes clear for the time being that we're doing that service.
Actually, that's very true. When we go to done every service and then when we go to sleep, that is the time we actually start thinking, oh, this happened like this, that happened like this. At that time, we are actually not doing any service.
Because when we're doing service, we're doing it in service of Krishna and devotees. So then we're very happy.
Yeah.
We're always happy. Like you see, for example, when people are doing kirtan, there's nothing but smiles. When people are in the kitchen, there's nothing but smiles. When people are addressing the deities, there's nothing but smiles. When we're doing service to Krishna and their devotees, we're always happy. There's nothing in the mind because we're doing pure service.
Yeah.
We're not doing that service with any ulterior motive. If you're doing a service and you have an ulterior motive, that means you're not focusing on that service. That means you're not doing that service to your fullest capacity, which means Krishna can't reciprocate with you as much as you want him to. Compared to the person who fully focuses on the service, gives everything he has, then Krishna fully reciprocates with him. As I said in that Bhagavad Gita verse, Krishna reciprocates to the devotee as much as the devotee gives in service to him.
Thank you.
I'm confused with these two things like fault finding and criticizing someone. So if we find a fault in someone, after a while we may criticize someone in that thing. And when Mataji said that before that person says anything, like even he realizes and he gets hurt, before that Krishna gets to know that.
No, I need to say, like Simon say, I'm talking to Darpan Prabhu. I'm trying to offend him something, right? So before even Darpan Prabhu understands what I'm trying to criticize,
Krishna
Darpan
gets
Prabhu's
to
dust is
know.
already gone to Krishna.
Right.
To tell, Darpan is
So after that, then our devotional love towards Krishna and enthusiasm goes down. And other side, you said that if we have that tendency of fault finding, and once we are into Krishna consciousness, after a while, the bad thing goes off. So
yeah, it's like purificatory process. Like when you are sick, when you take one tablet, it's not going to go down. When you're like, so especially when you have a sinus infection, this infection, that infection, the doctor gave antibiotic for 10 days because he wanted to completely remove that out. If you take one dose of antibiotic and if you go and tell the doctor, come on, I took the antibiotic, it's not going away. It's not going to go away. We are going to suffer throughout those 1 week or 8 days until the infection starts getting out. So even in the devotional process, initially we may have that mindset of finding faults or criticizing or this and that, but as you keep continuing the chanting process, hearing and reading and everything, slowly Krishna will remove the root of fault finding. When there is no fault finding attitude, there is no venue for criticizing, right? Because you are going to see everything good in other devotee. We are only trying to focus on the positiveness of the devotee, what it is. So it is a process. It's a process. Of course, Krishna has to teach us when we do a mistake. So he may reduce the taste for devotional service a little bit, but somehow or the other, the devotees association helps us to keep doing, even though we don't have full taste for the devotional service. That's why association is very, 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 very important. If we idle ourselves from the association of devotees, then when we lose the taste, Maya Devi is ready. She's like, I understand why you don't go to temple. Here, listen to this music so you can be happy. Here, listen, just they bomb Iran and they kill this, whoever that guy is. Just see that news. What is updates on the news? Trump did good, and Democrat says they didn't do good. Just listen to this debate. It helps you. And then we carry on, go. We basically dig our own ditch. Going deeper. When we're in the association of devotees, the devotees helps us. Krishna is going to be more happy seeing devotees helping each other. So we will, because we have those anarthas, it's not this lifetime. We are storing and having these anarthas for life after life after life after life after life. So it's not going to go just one day you come and say Hare Krishna, Krishna. It's not going to go like this. It's a process. Like the antibiotic, how it takes time to act on the body and remove that infection. So anartha nivritti is also, it's the longest process of all the the stages of devotional service. Anartha nivritti is the longest.
Going off what she said,
Thank you.
in the light of criticism, Krishna sees our thoughts behind the criticism, our intentions. If we're, again, we cannot criticize elders, obviously. But if, let's say, Hari is older than me and he's telling me something, if his intention is good, if he's trying to teach me something, then that criticism is not bad. But if he's criticizing me with the intention of hurting me or offending me, malicious intent, yes. With the malicious intent, then that criticism is seen as bad. But if my mother's correcting me, there's no bad intention behind that. Even if she seems angry, there's no bad intention behind her correcting me because she doesn't want to do that mistake again. So intention and what she said is very important when it comes to these topics.
There's also something to be said, since we ended early, I can say this, there's something to be said with criticism and correction as well. Like one time, for example, I was here on a Saturday, and then there was this one pious lady. She came, and then this door is always unlocked, so she just walked onto the altar. So and then I told her, you can't do that because you're not supposed to go. And then I was thinking, is that an offense? I criticized the devotee, and what was she trying to do? She was trying to get closer to Krishna, and then I criticized her for trying to get closer to Krishna. So it's not like I was reflecting after, and I spoke to a senior devotee. It was kind of like I was just the intent wasn't like, oh, she got into the altar and I don't get on the altar and blah blah blah. It's more like it's correction in that we don't want them to make more offenses than they can get back. And also in this process of criticism, or like making offenses to devotees, there's this nice story by Vidunda Maharaj that I think you all might have heard of the lady book distributor in France. That this lady was distributing books in Paris, and then and then this guy just took the Krishna book, ripped it apart, and then threw it in her face and kicked her off the train. And then she was like bloodied, and she was like, it was bad. Why are you disturbing me? And then finally, from somehow he took that ripped Krishna book, and then his business failed and his life went to crap. And then finally he started reading the Krishna book, and then he became the temple president of Marseille. So it's even though his spiritual life was literally based on the pain of the devotees, still he became, Krishna was merciful unto him. And then also what Darpan was saying, that when you're sleeping, then the offense starts to come. I heard a lecture by Gopal Krishna Maharaj when he is saying that if sleeping is also a service. So if you work whole day for Krishna, then your sleeping is also a service. So then the mind will be thinking, oh, all the services that you did. But if you didn't serve Krishna 100% during the day, then these thoughts start to come. Yeah, those are my 2 cents about those things.
On the antibiotic thing also that you were saying, one of the things doctors often say also is you will feel better soon, but you can't stop taking it, or you can relapse.
Right, yeah.
And this also applies in bhakti. The first of the 6 symptoms of the practice of pure devotional service is called kleshabhini, where it's the alleviating all miseries happens first. Then shubhada, the beginning of auspiciousness. all these things, you can get bewildered by that wonderful quality of devotional service and think, that I'm done, then you're done, but not in the way you thought, because you're not going anywhere. And you can relapse. You can absolutely relapse. So, take a whole course of devotional service. I like that antibiotic example.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Hare
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Yeah.
This guy's Narahari Prabhu ki
Ki
jai.
jai.
Prabhupada ki.
Yeah.